Okay, all right. Yep, we are live. I'm seeing some green check marks, but dadgummit, I need two more. So I got to let it breathe. Hang tight, guys. You know the drill. What a doozy of a day I've had, Roger. You don't know how right you are, my friend. And we're good. Welcome in, everybody. It's the Mile High Huddle podcast on this fine Monday evening. I'm your host, Chad Jensen. Half my face is numb because I've been at the dentist for 3.5 hours, and that's why the stream was so late getting up tonight. I got home at about 10 to 6 and immediately created the stream. So if I smile, only like half my face will go up. But I'm here with my partner, Zack Kelberman. You know him, you love him. He's been monitoring the news wire. He's been seeing all the buzz all day long. And Zack, before I went to the dentist, the big news of the day wasn't necessarily Bronco related, but the Miami Dolphins moving on from Tyreek Hill. What do you make of that?
Oh, a move that's been long discussed in the running for Miami. New management, new GM, new head coach, kind of fait accompli for Tyreek. And I think the prime years I will get into why the Broncos should or should not sign him, the pros and cons. I'm against it right off the bat, Chad. I'll say I'm against the potential move. He's turning, what is he going to be? He's going to be 32 on March 1st. He's a walking, talking character concern, Chad, a locker room issue. His best years are behind him because of the knee injury. He tore up ligaments. He had an ACL as well with that. So, no, there are much better options the Broncos could look toward on the trade market, on the free agent market, hell, even in the draft before I would go after Tyreek Hill.
Yeah, just knowing his injury situation this last season, he only appeared in 4 games, 21 catches, 265 yards, and a tutty before he got hurt. The year before, in fact, Zack, you can really look at it as the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 preceding seasons. It's kind of crazy. He's been in the league for a minute now. Was pretty consistent production. I mean, that's 6 out of those 8 were 1,000-yard receiving seasons. 2024, Zack, he had 959. But I'm with you, dude. He's well on the wrong side of 30. He's a little bit of a cancerous type guy. Although he has, if the culture's right, I think he's a guy that'll buy in, as evidenced by his contributions to Kansas City Chiefs canon. However, they did let him go.
Yeah, he was always a deep threat kind of guy, a break the game open kind of guy. I don't know if he has that one utility left to offer after the knee injury now. So you add on all the baggage, the locker room stuff, his age, what he might demand contractually. It's just a no-go for the Broncos, 100% if I'm George Paton. I'm not even calling Tyreek Hill. I'm not even picking up the phone.
Yeah, what do you guys think? Well, let's see, actually, Mr. Producer. Yeah, that's true. That's true. What are you guys thinking about Tyreek? So, see, String Guy, this is how right you were, dude. He says, I'd rather get a root canal and see Denver get Tyreek Hill. I feel you, dude. Jalen Waddle, much better choice, to be honest, though. We need running back more. Yeah, I hear you. We've got Shannon Mills checking in off the top rope.
Thank you.
A Mount Rushmore superstar. We love you, Shannon. Thank you so much for your support, my friend. She says, good evening, Chad, Zach, Scott, and Broncos country. Definitely would be a hard pass for me on Tyreek Hill. Hope you're okay, Chad. Yeah, I'm okay. I just had a root canal and a little bit of a complication that took a little bit longer. I should have been in and out like hour and a half total, but I was in the chair for 3.5 hours. And as I was telling the fellas before we went live, I will not sit down in a dentist chair unless they basically have the gas on. So I was feeling pretty good by the time I walked out of that bad boy, and I lost track of time. I just put in some tunes. They numbed me up. Time passed. Here I am. So I'm doing fine. It's just a little nothing that a little time won't heal. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Shannon, so much. And I think that's the consensus in Broncos country, Chad. I haven't seen too many Broncos fans wanting the team to go after Tyreek Hill. I think most people agree that it's one player they should steer far, far clear from.
Yeah, but Jalen Waddle, he's still interesting, of course, but you're going to have to give up some capital to get him. Now, on that front, Zach, there was some, what would you call it? Some prospective trade proposals.
Yeah.
Was that the Department of Redundancy department? Some trade proposals, we'll just say, Zach, that involved, was it from Barnwell that
Yep.
involved the Broncos acquiring A.J. Brown? What was that about? I missed it. I'm going off what you said to me.
Yeah, so he thinks the Broncos should trade for A.J. Brown, the receiver out of Philadelphia. He proposes the Broncos send Riley Moss and a 2026 second-round draft pick in exchange for A.J. Brown and a 2027 fifth rounder, I think. So the crux of the deal is a second-round pick and Riley Moss for A.J. Brown. And I would do that 10 out of 10 times before I sign Tyreek Hill. And might do it anyway, Chad. You'd be giving up a starting corner and a premium draft pick, but there's no receiver you're going to get in round 2 or round 1 for that matter that can bring to the table what A.J. Brown does.
It is interesting. A.J. Brown is 28. He'll be 29 this season. So it's his age 29 season. Since he's been a pro, this is dating back to his Tennessee days. He's nothing but 1,000 yards, Zach, except once. And that was his final year at Tennessee where he missed 4 games. So he finished with 869 yards that season. But last year, 121 targets, 78 catches, 1,003 receiving yards, 7 touchdowns. And he was obviously not that stoked, Zach, on his usage in the new offense there in Philly, that they kind of had its ups and downs, mostly downs, relative to coming off that big Super Bowl win. He's interesting. Riley Moss or A.J. Brown? That one's pretty simple. As much as I love Riley Moss, that one would be pretty simple for me.
Yeah, and not to mention A.J. Brown is like a high-end version of Cortland Sutton. And I don't know in this scenario whether you're keeping Sutton and A.J. Brown, but you put both players on the field, you're increasing Bo Nix's red zone success by 50% minimum. He's a demon who can help out Bo Nix just as a safety blanket, as a possession receiver. He's a good receiver.
We got David Youngkin jumping in with an excellent point, a dear member, a superstar, saying Tyreek Hill is an eye player, not a team player. And that's a great point. That's kind of what he's known for, my brother. So we got the Papa Bear checking in too. David McElrath, great to see you. Saying good evening, Broncos country, with a $5 super chat. Thank you, Papa Bear. Every single day, without fail, we see the Papa Bear in the stream, throwing down a super, helping us keep the lights on. Thank you, big dog. But what are you guys wanting to see of these names we've mentioned tonight? Roy, a dear member, saying good evening. I'll pass on Hill. Keith, this is kind of what my feeling is, running back first as well. Figure that out. And there's some great wide receiver options in this draft, Zach. You know, even as the number 30 overall pick in each round and whatnot, like the Broncos, if you go fill the major hole at running back in free agency, you could double dip at wide receiver.
Yeah, Keith, I do not disagree. The Broncos need a running back, but I think it was Scott that said earlier, it doesn't have to be one or the other first. There's no real ranking in terms of urgency because the Broncos can make moves simultaneously. They can go get a running back and they can trade for A.J. Brown at the same time. But the point still stands. That's the number one goal of the offseason, is improving the supporting cast around Bo Nix. And that's not just wide receiver. That also includes running back. It includes tight end. And it includes figuring out what you're doing along the offensive line with Ben Powers and maybe a center behind Luke Wattenberg.
Well said, guys. Okay, Keith Brugman, good to see you, my friend. He's saying, are you telling me, this was some of the other news today, by the way, guys, the Dolphins, it's a fire sale. They're basically starting over, which actually portends well, Zach, if you're one of those that really wants the Broncos to turn over every stone relative to Waddle. They're probably more amenable to talking and maybe not as, I don't know, strict on what they're asking for, just because they're blowing it up. But they released, or it was reported today, Zach, they're planning to release Bradley Chubb, one of the two. Either way, he's saying, are you telling me we could get Von Miller and Bradley Chubb? Oh, how time will change things. Yeah, wasn't so long ago, Zach, those two were combining, what was it, 2018, his rookie year, Chubb's that is, to, what was 24 and a half something sacks. Those were the days. But the Broncos, that's not a team need nowadays. They're pretty set at rush linebacker.
No, and how about I put this out on Twitter, but how about the butterfly effect? So the Broncos draft Bradley Chubb over Josh Allen. Chubb is traded for a first round pick. Denver then trades that pick for Sean Payton. Sean Payton drafts Bo Nix, and then Sean Payton and Bo Nix end up beating Josh Allen in Buffalo in the postseason, all because of Bradley Chubb. So I don't want to bring him back, but I will salute him for his indirect service to the franchise.
Yeah, I mean Bradley Chubb last season, just for fun, just for the sake of kind of checking up on our boy as he's about to hit the market really for the first time in his career. Of course, 2024, he was out the whole season, but last year started all 17. But Zach, relatively low sack numbers for a guy that was on the field ostensibly as much as he was. He only had 8.5 sacks. So he's now, by the way, entering his age 30 season.
That's always been the rap on Chubb, though, is that his draft status and what his athleticism shows on tape, it doesn't match the production on the field. He should have been a higher sack guy, kind of like a Jadeveon, whatever, in terms of he's not a bust. He's a decent player. He's a good player, but he should have been a great player considering where he was drafted. And Bradley Chubb is not a great player.
I remember when he got the Pro Bowl, Zach, on 7 and now like not alternate. Oh, made the Pro Bowl, starter or whatever, first 7.5 sacks, Zach. Then he had a press conference, kind of got a little teary-eyed over it, and they shut him down for the season. You remember that? That was, let's see, what year was that? That was 2020. That seems like yesterday to me, dude.
It seems like yesterday, and it seems like decades ago. I can't believe it's been 6 years since that issue that shall not be named. But yeah, I mean, there was a time where Bradley Chubb was seen as the next Von Miller to Keith's comment here, but the arrow quickly declined on him. We realized what he was, and that's a mid-round talent, not a top 5 talent.
Yeah, I hey, wish the best for Bradley Chubb, and I'm sure he'll land on his feet. He plays a premium position. He's healthy, Zach, and he's got a couple of Pro Bowls under his belt as far as his resume goes. So wish him the best. Tucson Phil in the hizzy. Great to see you, pal, on Facebook. He says, good evening, Chad, Zach, and Deacon Scott. What do you guys think about Caleb Banks, Omar Cooper, and Eli Stowers? In my opinion, I would love all 3. Buckham, MHH for life, Broncos for life. So Caleb Banks, Scott and I got a good look at him at the Senior Bowl. Big defensive tackle from Florida. And he was very impressive. That's for dang sure. He's an interesting guy. How badly do you need a run stuffing kind of DT nose tackle type? Not saying that you couldn't use him, but do you really need him? Cooper, obviously, the star receiver from Indiana. And then Eli Stowers. How do you say it? Stowers? I think it's Stowers, actually, from Vanderbilt. Interesting. They're all kind of, Zach, in the range of first, second, and third round for the Denver Broncos.
Yeah, Phil, I appreciate the question, but like I say every time, I will say until the combine anyway, it's so tough to talk about something that's 2 months out when we don't even know what the Broncos are doing in free agency. But on a macro level, obviously, I co-sign any move where they get a receiver. But to what Chad was saying there, I don't think a run-stuffing DT is of the utmost importance. If they have one defensive area of need, it's inside linebacker. I think they're good along the defensive line, even after losing JFM.
Scott, you think Cooper will be there at 30? That's tough. I don't know. He'd be interesting. Eric just dropped top 10 wide receivers of the class at milehighhuddle.com, guys. I think that was yesterday. If it wasn't yesterday, it was the day before. And today, in fact, he dropped top 10 running backs. So Cooper's listed. If you want to learn a little bit more about him, go read about it at the website. But David Youngkin jumping in again. Thank you, brother. Love you. Hope you're doing better. He says, Broncos have a lot of big decisions to make this offseason. Yes, they do. Not only, Zach, in terms of who to bring in, who to pursue in the draft and all that, but 11 unrestricted free agents, John Franklin Myers, J.K. Dobbins being the two big ones, plus linebacker, right? You can't go into a season with just one. You gotta bring back, I guess you don't have to bring back Alex Singleton or Justin Sternad, but those are the big 4. And then I guess I'd round out the top 5 big internal decisions with PJ Locke, Zach, the safety at number 5.
Yeah, giving Jaquan McMillan an extension, I think, should be on the top of the Broncos list, David. But Sean Payton also has to round out his coaching staff. And we have to figure out if or when Davis Webb will be taking over play calling duties for Sean Payton. The winds are blowing and saying yes right now, but that's nothing official yet. So a lot of decisions, like you were saying there, a lot left to be uncovered. It's all just getting started. I can't wait.
Oh yeah, we're just barely getting rolling, and even though, geez, we're already 2 weeks, more than 2 weeks into February, it just goes to show you guys, March 11th, which is when the new league year opens, it'll be here before you know it. So anyway, thank you, David. Really appreciate you, big guy. Big guy. Shout out here to Ronnie Ray. Hope you're doing well on Facebook, my friend. Keith says again, I saw a post ranking Javonte Williams as the number 3 free agent running back. We do need a running back, right? Zach, in all seriousness, would you want to see Pookie back in the orange and blue?
No. I've been there, done that. They need to aim higher. I mean, if I don't want J.K. Dobbins back, and if I want Brees Hall, definitely wouldn't want to settle for Javonte. I'm glad he had success in Dallas. I don't know if he'll keep that going for the rest of his career. It might be a flash in the pan, but no, I'm going for Brees Hall. I'm going for Kenneth Walker. I'm going for Tyler Algier before I think about Javonte Williams.
Yeah, I mean, if it was a leaner free agent class, Zach, maybe it's something that you look at, but there's some pretty good options fixing to hit the market. Now we'll see if Seattle makes any moves to keep Kenneth Walker III, or if the Jets really do apply one of the tags to Brees Hall. But I mean, honestly, guys, it might sound weird considering that Pookie is a former second round pick, but I would rather re-sign J.K. Dobbins because I saw him have some success as a Bronco in recent times. I haven't seen that from Javonte. And even though he didn't finish the season, I'd rather sign J.K. Dobbins, and I'd rather sign two running backs. Now, then again, if you made Javonte and J.K. Dobbins part of the solution, maybe they could be a great tandem, so to speak. But I think he'll end up returning to Dallas, Zach, is what I'm guessing.
Do we remember why we ran Javonte out of town in the first place? Him running into the back of his offensive lineman, 3 yards to carry, this and that. The same thing we dogged RJ Harvey about at times, his vision concerns. I don't know why we want to bring that back into Denver when we finally have a chance to upgrade meaningfully at the position.
Here's a good point from Scott. He says, give Tyler Algier as an example. Dak Prescott as his quarterback, George Pickens, CeeDee Lamb as the receivers, and then 300 touches, and tell me again that Javonte is a better running back, right? You just don't get the stack boxes against the Cowboys because there's just too many weapons that defenses, Zach, have to account for. And Broncos fans, guys, it wasn't that long ago that we were in a similar spot. Like, think about it. In 2013, Noshawn Moreno was kind of viewed as a tapped out dude, right? Like, he was basically viewed as a first-round bust. He hadn't done much outside of his rookie year. Peyton Manning comes in, same thing. They don't dare stack the box. All of his runs came out of the shotgun, off tackle, out of the shotgun. He still got over 1,000 yards and over double-digit touchdowns, and then the Broncos promptly let him leave.
Yeah, plus, Javonte had the season-ending injury. He has a lot of carries already for someone who's only been in the league a handful of years. There's a higher upside plays the Broncos can go, ceiling and floor. I see Ronnie Ray saying, I feel Algier is the way. I'm starting to lean that way as well. A guy who has a lot of tread left on his tires, who hasn't been exposed to starting level carries in the NFL. You're going to be getting a running back for the next 3 or 5 years potentially. That's where I would go.
And this is the vision, guys, we're still seeing a lot of stack boxes against Bo Nix and the Broncos. So bringing in weapons, because I think opponents, Zach, for the most part, they recognize that Bo Nix can be a weapon in and of himself, like as a passer and as a runner. It's just that they don't fear the weapons, like none of the, including Cortland Sutton, like between the 20s, Zach, no one really fears Sutton. As soon as you get in the red zone, all of a sudden you're seeing them get double coverage and stuff like that. But you get some better skill positions, especially at wide receiver. And heck, even if you had the exact same personnel in the running back room year over year, you probably end up seeing a much more efficient production from that group.
I don't know how you expect any quarterback to thrive when he has maybe one proven reliable receiver in Cortland Sutton. And I don't even want to say reliable when he's out there dropping easy passes, and a lack of a consistent running game. He had J.K. Dobbins for half of a season through 2 years in the NFL, and he still produced. I mean, I'm not saying he should have all pros everywhere around him, but he should have just a little more talent than what he's been given so far.
Yeah, string guy. Zach, you had a nice thread on this today, the butterfly effect of the Bradley Chubb thing. And it actually wasn't even really talking about the Elway mistake angle, right? You were just talking about how the Bradley Chubb trade ended up being kind of the fulcrum upon which this new era of the Broncos rests. It was actually quite interesting to kind of go, oh, wow, yeah, that's right. That's how this thing unfolded. Whoa.
Yeah, I broke it down earlier in the podcast, but you could take it a step further with like the epilogue, whatever, the beginning, prologue, epilogue, where the
Prologue.
Broncos only drafted Bradley Chubb because they were gun shy after whiffing on Paxton Lynch. Part of the reason they passed on Josh Allen was because they didn't want to go after a quarterback again. So if they never drafted Bradley Chubb, maybe you don't end up with Sean Payton. Maybe you don't end up with Bo Nix. And that's what makes the butterfly effect so amazing and so insane.
Excellent point. It's like, man, when it was 2020, Zach, 2021, even 2022, we were really lamenting 2023, I guess, the Elway decision not to draft the guy that they probably knew the most about in that class because he was just an hour and a half, 2 hours north. They scouted him like crazy at Wyoming, and they decided not to take him. Had they, who knows? We wouldn't be in this situation now. So exactly, some things just happen for a reason. Bill jumping in again. Would you guys give up a first rounder to get Brian Thomas or Drake London or Jalen Waddle? Zach, I would consider doing it for Jalen Waddle. I don't know about the other two.
Yeah, that's a no on Brian Thomas. He's too volatile right now with the first couple years of his career. Drake London, I would give up like a second and a third. I really like him, and I think Sean Payton would be just head over heels with someone of his abilities as a blocker, as a pass catcher. He's a really, really underrated receiver. Jalen Waddle's the no-brainer here. And apparently, Phil, the Broncos made a call to Miami at the trade deadline. They wanted more than a first-round pick, probably 2 first-rounders. But like Chad said earlier, they had a fire sale. There's new management, new GM, new head coach. They might be more open to giving up Waddle for maybe a first-round pick or maybe less. If A.J. Brown, Chad, could go for a second round and Riley Moss, maybe they can get Jalen for less than a first-rounder. That would be excellent.
I mean, it has all the appearances of a fire sale. Like they're genuinely starting over. So new head coach, they're going to figure out a new quarterback situation. Strike while that iron's hot if you can. Eric Holt in the house. What's up, bro? Great to see you. Thank you for the support, big dog. He says, hey, guys, the other night I mentioned about trading 2 second-round picks for Jameson Williams, and Zach hated that idea. I'm just curious, why not? Because I think he could be a true number one, and he's a speed demon, Zach.
I think I don't want to speak for you, Chad, but I don't think that you were too keen on that either. But this is why, because he could be a true number one. When you could give up draft picks, like we talked about, a second rounder for A.J. Brown, for a proven number one, not for speculative, not for hypothetical, for someone that's already produced on the level of a number one receiver in the NFL. Plus, he has a little baggage. He has some injury concerns. I think he had a suspension too, right? And in Detroit, I don't know that I want that in the locker room. I would rather just go for a higher, safer bet. Garrett Wilson in New York, Chris Olave in New Orleans. We mentioned Waddle. There's a lot of receivers the Broncos could look toward. I don't know that I would gamble on the upside, if there even is any upside left with Jameson Williams.
Yeah, he was a comeback player of the year guy in 2024 because he had that injury. And Zach, then he came back with 1,001 yards that year. Last season, 25, he had a career high 65 receptions for 1,117 yards, 7 touchdowns. So he's interesting, but I don't think he's good enough to really change the math to justify the 2 second-round picks. Whereas you could probably get a guy pretty dang close to what he could offer you with one of those second-round picks and live to tell the tale. But, hey, beggars can't be choosers. Broncos right now, Zach, I don't want to completely shoot down the idea. The Broncos right now need to find as much dynamic impact to flood that skill position as possible. Like whatever they can scare up, they need to consider, and whatever teams are willing to talk about, at least have it on the table. And as George Payton talks about often, I'll always be willing to make that call. We're going to call on everything. We're going to be in on every deal. So we'll see, and whether or not that ends up being a deal.
Yeah, I threw out some heavy allegations there. I wanted to make sure I was correct, and I was. He was suspended, Jameson Williams, for 2 games in October 2024 for PEDs, PED violation, and then in 2023, he had a 4-game suspension for a gambling violation. I'm not giving up capital for someone that's not a no doubt proven number one that also has that baggage. Give me AJ Brown before I get Jameson Williams.
Yeah, well said. Thank you, though, Eric. Hey, listen. Friends can disagree, and I think it's cool that you feel strongly about it, and we love that you're contributing to the conversation, and we're using our brains tonight. We're talking about why we believe a certain way, and so we appreciate you, big dog. Glenn jumping in from Melbourne. Great to have you, pal, saying good morning for him, right, in the future. No way to Pookie. Give me Dobbins on a vet deal plus either Algier or Breece Hall. Then Jam Miller in the draft. We go. Zach, help me here, buddy, on this last one. Do you like our? I'm not sure about that second part, bro. You lost me there.
I think he means going into the draft and looking at inside linebacker in rounds 2 through 4. I don't know.
Hashtag free agency coming, state of being Super Bowl 2027. Yeah, dude. You are one of the great state of being members of our community, and give a shout out to Jackson. All right. From the football priest, big dog. But Zach, I'm telling you, I like the idea very much so of bringing back J.K. Dobbins, pairing him with a Algier, pairing him with a Bryce, pairing him with a Walker. The more that time passes, the more the guy that's rising to the surface for me as a fit, and it's Algier, dude. I'm telling you, him and Dobbins as the 1-2 punch frees up RJ Harvey to be that scat back, change of pace guy, weapon passing dude. And then the Broncos are free to really use some draft capital to load up at wide receiver.
If you re-sign Dobbins, you can't go wrong if you add another running back. You can't go wrong if you added Breece Hall, Walker, or Algier to that group. That's a really interesting dynamic threesome-wise between them. A lot of different skill sets, a lot of very diverse talents, and they would be a massive upgrade on what the Broncos put out on the field in 2025. So I'm with you on that, Glenn. Thank you.
Hey, Chase, good to see you, pal. He's talking about Devin Lloyd, the linebacker. I can't get with going after Lloyd because he's projected to get around maybe $20 million per year, and he's only had the one good season under his belt. It's true. You beware the 1-year wonders, right? You got to beware the 1-year wonders, but geez, Louise, was that a year? Devin Lloyd, just to recap, former first-round pick out of Utah in 2022. I wouldn't say that it was his only good year, but it was his big year relative to accolades, Zach, relative to, takeaways. But he's been over 100. Here's what's funny. They view 2025 is viewed as his kind of breakout year for obvious reasons. And yet it's the only year he's had as a pro where he didn't total north of 100 tackles. He finished with 81. However, where he made up for that, Zach, was the 5 interceptions. Plus he recovered a fumble. But if you look at his first 3 years, man, he's at 115 tackles, 127 tackles, 113 tackles. And over that 3-year span, Zach, 4 interceptions. So I don't think he's as 1-year wonder risky as, say, even Nick Bonito was coming off of that 2024 season. To be honest with you, like there's more meat on that bone relative to sample size in Devin Lloyd, but the big splashy plays and the picks and returning 199 yards and all that stuff, Zach, that is a little bit newer, but as a linebacker, he's been pretty consistent.
Yeah, I'm with Chase. I think he's going to get just ridiculous money considering the season he had and Jacksonville had. That's how the market usually goes. They pay on momentum, and Devin Lloyd has a lot of momentum right now. I would be okay if the Broncos threw that contract at him in one of 2 scenarios. If they had more already free cap space, I think they have 23 or 26 million. It's not that much. They can free more. And also, if they had a better defensive coordinator, and what I mean by that is historically Vance Joseph has spoiled whatever true dominant elite level inside linebacker he's had. Even with Dre Greenlaw, I didn't see that much of an impact beyond 1 or 2 plays. So I don't know that I want to allocate those resources for a luxury move. I would rather put that money toward helping out Bo Nix and getting him a receiver or a running back.
Spaceman, a new-ish member. Good to see you, buddy. Saying very few elite receivers aren't divas and me type of players. Comes with the territory. The Cooper Kupps, the JSNs,
Puka Nacua.
Yeah, Nakua's. Yeah, sorry. Don't grow on trees. Just deal with the diva. And that's a fair point. I would submit, though, Cortland Sutton, outside of his beginning years, he got into a little bit of trouble, not like off the field trouble, but drama his first couple of years. And I remember Zach Still, that training camp fight he got in with Emmanuel Sanders and all that stuff. And he ended up being right, like he ended up outlasting him. And not only that, but producing pretty hard his second year, having that Pro Bowl, nice Pro Bowl year, catching passes from Joe Flacco and Drew Lock. And what was the middle guy? Brandon Allen. So, yeah, I guess he's even Cortland Sutton, Zach, is not impervious to the me player stuff. But Brad Murdoch jumping in off the top rope, brother. Great to see you. Thank you so much, Big Dog, for the support. Seriously, man. Means the world to us. He's saying, good evening, everyone. Middle linebacker has me a bit concerned. Sternad is likely to demand a big payday. Singleton's getting long in the tooth. And can we trust Greenlaw to stay healthy? Thoughts on spending a little bit there. So we just talked about it, Zach, relative to, pursuing a Devin Lloyd caliber free agent. I don't think you necessarily need to do that. I would be interested in it. I would be interested in at least finding out exactly what Lloyd's looking for and how much it could make sense for the Broncos. But I think what you end up seeing, Zach, is the Broncos bring back one of. It's either Singleton or Sternad. And you're only bringing back Sternad if he has assurances that he's starting. And not just that, Zach, but he really has worked hard the last 2 years to put himself in position where he's very attractive now on the open market. Like, he's going to have some suitors, and he's not going to come cheap as he has on these 1-year deals he's gotten. What was it? Each of the last 2 or 3 seasons, 2020, 21, 22, 23, 24, last 2 off seasons. So I don't know. The problem with Singleton, he'll be 33, but he's a team captain, like he's beloved in the locker room. He's not as bad as he kind of seemed like he was trending the first quarter of the season. He really solidified and got better. So I don't know what to expect there, but I do think one of the two comes back.
Can we trust Greenlaw to stay healthy? Probably not, Brad. Just being realistic. That's the problem when you sign injury-prone players as good as they are. They're probably going to get injured, and that's what happened with Dre Greenlaw. So they're going to have to have a good backup plan. I'm with Chad. I think I'm letting Singleton walk. I understand his story and his locker room presence, this and that, but he's a liability more often than not when he's on the field. I want the best players on the field. So I'm probably bringing back Sternad, and I'm seeing if I can go after Devin Lloyd, maybe a Quay Walker if Green Bay lets him go. But that's a position where I'm leaning on the draft. I'm drafting fairly high, maybe the 2nd or 3rd round, and I'm doubling down later in the draft as well, and bringing in all these different players, and may the best man win. You'll have Greenlaw 100%, barring another offseason injury, and you'll have Sternad in the mix, and then you'll have a couple rookies. I think that's the way to go for inside linebacker.
But it is a fair concern because when you look at keeping the defense a strength, right, going into 2026, your secondary is intact. It's got a new coach, but your secondary is intact. Your D-line minus JFM, the main majority of that unit, intact. Your rush linebacker, edge guys, intact. Big question marks in the middle. And, of all the points on the defense, though, Zach, that's also the spot over the last couple of years where the Broncos have had the most kind of, whether it was Singleton's season-ending injury in 2024, this last season, Greenlaw being hurt, and then Singleton having to miss only a little time with his cancer scare and all that. It is something that if you want to keep the defensive strength, it's gotta be attended to. But I don't think it's a 4-alarm fire, honestly, just because you got Greenlaw coming back, and you got the injury concern, but they'll bring back one of these 2 guys, and I think they'll be all right, and kind of bet on the youth of their roster and look at the draft, which, Glenn's talking about Gold A. as a rounds 2 or 4 guy. And I mean, there's some interesting linebackers in this class that will also interest the Broncos.
Yeah, that's where I would go. It's tough to start a rookie at inside linebacker in the middle of your defense, and especially in the scheme the Broncos play. So if you bring back Sternad, you have Greenlaw, you have your starters, and you can bring those rookies along slowly, no matter who they draft, whether it's a high round inside linebacker or someone later in the draft. It puts a little less pressure on them, and you can pass them the baton later in the season for them to take over. So I don't think, like Chad said, I agree. It's not a main concern, a primary concern, but it is one to keep in mind on defense. If there is a biggest need on defense, it's inside linebacker.
We got Mike Thompson, a dear member, saying, I've seen people here shoot down Alec Pierce when he went over 1,000 yards with 11 games with Daniel Jones, 5 games with Rivers, and 1 game with a random guy. I just don't get it. Well, there are some people at MHH that are really high on Pierce, and I think he could be a great fit piece to the puzzle, but not that totally changing the math, scaring defenses straight guy. Like, he's got, Zach, an insane yards per reception number. If you look at Alec Pierce's numbers with the Colts, let me just remind myself. Oh, come on. Don't make me do the security verification Pro Football Reference. I love you, but you're killing me here. Last season, Zach, 21.3 yards per catch. Season before that was actually his career high, 22.3 yards per catch. So it's not that he's couldn't bring some value, but he's definitely a vertical threat, Zach, but he's a weird vertical threat. He's not that explosive short area burst, scare people, JSN type of guy. He's a long strider, and when the ball's in the air, he goes up and he gets it.
Because he's an all or nothing receiver. Either he's scoring a 60-yard touchdown or he's finishing with like 3 catches in a game. I have his game log pulled up right now. He had 2 games last season over 100 yards. The last game of the season against the Texans, he had 4 for 132 and 2 touchdowns. And then in week 9, I think it was, 6 receptions for 115 yards. The other games, though, 1 catch for 36, 2 for 48, 1 for 26, 1 for 16. It's all or nothing. If you're going to commit either cap dollars or draft compensation to a receiver, I want someone more proven. I want someone more reliable and more consistent.
At the combine, he ran a 4.41 40, standing at 6'3", 211. He also had a 40.5-inch vertical and a 10-foot 9-inch broad jump. So he's got some explosiveness to him. And there are some unofficial times that had him at 4.33. So there's a reason, Zach, that he's been able to get downfield and produce the way he has, albeit, as you point out, smaller bite size in terms of, you look at the number of receptions relative to his targets. I mean, he had 84 targets last year. He caught 47. That's almost 50%. But when he would catch them, they'd go for 21.3 yards per pop. You'd think he'd even have more than the 6 touchdowns that he did, especially with how much of an offensive juggernaut the Colts were before Daniel Jones got hurt.
I don't know. I just feel like with all the potentially available receivers, putting your eggs in the Alec Pierce #1 basket is not it's not going to be a net positive for the Broncos. Maybe if they had a proven, no doubt, if they had like a CeeDee Lamb or Jamar Chase, and you wanted to bring in a proven #2 guy, a top end #2, Alec Pierce would fit the bill. But between Marvin Mims and Troy Franklin, you basically have one Alec Pierce. Mold them first before you commit $30 million a year to someone who's not even a #1.
He's a phenomenal #2. That's what Alec Pierce is. Yeah. So yeah. You could definitely make some hay with him, but what you're trying to do is upgrade over Sutton, and that'll be easier said than done. So it depends on how some of these dominoes fall. You don't look a gift horse in the mouth. You keep him on the radar, and Alec Pierce could be a very realistic option for the Broncos. We'll see. We got Quentin Caldwell checking in saying that RJ Harvey will get better. We definitely want Dobbins and Tyler Algier as well. Yeah, I think RJ will get better. And the one thing that really impressed me, Zach, about RJ, he stayed healthy, dude. He stayed available. I can't even remember him popping up on the injury report, let alone, of course, he didn't miss any games. That's impressive, especially for a rookie that's going from the college format to playing deep into December and into January and multiple more games than they have to do in college. So he impressed me, RJ Harvey, but just got to have better down-to-down consistency as a ball carrier.
And he was making some big catches and taking some big hits for the Broncos. He came up big as a receiving threat. So, yeah, credit to him for the durability.
Eric jumping in again, buddy. Thank you, pal.
Thank you,
You're the
Eric.
man. He says, okay, you sold me on Waddle and Brown. Call Miami or Philly and offer them the number 62 overall pick. Draft Sadiq, the tight end, and a middle linebacker, either Hill from Texas or Lawson from Alabama, and go win the Super Bowl. Let's go Broncos. I love it, dude. I love it. Yeah, I mean, Sadiq, he's an interesting guy, the Oregon tight end. Good chance, Zach, he'll be there. Decent chance he'll be there at number 30 if the Broncos want to go that way. He's currently, before the combine, and I want to emphasize that, pre-combine, he's the only tight end that's viewed as a top 50 pick. So, but he is interesting. And Hill, I think Eric's very first mock draft of the 2026 offseason, he had the Broncos taking Hill in the first round.
Yeah, Eric, thank you for the super, and glad we can sell you a little bit. This is as close to perfect as you could go for the offseason for the Broncos. I only say as perfect because you're not mentioning running back, and that might be the biggest priority of them all. So if you want to include signing Walker or Algier or Breece Hall with this plan, it gets a 10 out of 10. As it stands, though, solid 9.5. I love the way you're thinking now.
Thank you, buddy. Ronnie Ray, speaking of Sanders, some are saying that he would make Emmanuel Sanders, that is, a great receiver coach because of his beef with Sutton. Would that push him out the door if Sanders gets hired? I don't think it was a lasting beef. It was a tempers flare type of moment, more kind of a brotherly rivalry, more so than genuine beef, from what I understand. And Zach, also, I got to tell you, from what I can remember, it's been a while. This was summer of 2018. And I'm trying to remember that article. It was something like Sanders was heard saying something like, you're not that guy yet, or something like that, and whatever. And by the end of that season, Zach, he was that guy because they traded DT. God bless. They traded DT, and then Sanders got hurt. So by the last 4 or 5 games of the 2018 season, Sutton was the de facto, albeit de facto meaning like they ran out of guys, number one. And then he opened that next season, Sanders was gone, and he was the guy. Like, they made space. So I don't think there's a beef, but if he wanted to come in, man, they need a receiver coach. That's definitely would be interesting. And Zach, Emmanuel Sanders did go play for Sean Payton.
Yeah, I was going to say it's been like a eon in terms of NFL terms. I think it was, like you said, 2018, 2019 or something like that. So if there was a beef, that's probably squashed by now. 7 years ago is quite a while in the NFL. And just because I'll say this, I'm sure Sanders would make for an interesting coach, a fun coach to play for. But just because you played receiver in the NFL doesn't mean it's going to translate to being a good coach. The Broncos had Kerry Colbert. He was a former NFL receiver. They just fired him. So we'll see where they go with that position.
I'm trying to remember something here real quick. Hang tight with me one sec, guys. I'm trying to remember the actual. So he went from Denver. That's what I remembered. Okay. So he went from Denver to San Francisco in 2019. Then he went to the New Orleans Saints, Zach, for the 2020 season. Emmanuel did. And then had that was one of the the second to last year of the Sean Payton regime in New Orleans. And then Sanders gave it the old college try one more time with Josh Allen and the Bills in 2021. So that was his last year. But he had quite the career, man. He finished just shy of 10,000 yards receiving, which, that's not bad for a dude that, what was he? For the Steelers, I'm trying to remember, 3rd round pick, I think. So anyway, it would be interesting, and he's still very much a Denver guy, and he has the Sean Payton ties. And Zach, they happen to need a wide receiver coach.
Yeah, maybe they'll bring him in for like a summer internship. We'll see where they go with that. It's. You also mentioned John Morton. I don't know if he's still available or not, but that was to me a no doubt candidate.
One thing I remember about Sanders is he caught the ball a lot with his body. I don't remember him being a drops guy much. We can look at the actual numbers, but it's kind of beside the point. But he caught a lot of passes like this where it hits his body and then you close his arm. You close your arms over the ball. Sean Payton really emphasized this thing, Zach, the thumbs together and all that. So I don't know how much of an interest Emmanuel has in getting into the grind of the coaching life. I mean, it's a grind. He's still a young man, relatively speaking, Zach, with a lot of money, a young family. Do you want to go throw yourself into coaching? You got to really have that burning in your soul, I think, to turn over that leaf. But Ron, good to see you, pal. Great to see one of our pivotal Mount Rushmore members of this community. Hope you're doing well, big dog, this Monday. We got Smouse in the house and smash the like button. We only have 24 likes. Come on, MHH fam. Do we really? What's up, guys? Come on. We need those likes, fellas and ladies. We need your help on that. String guy, Chatter Zach. What do you think of Nick mocking Illinois quarterback Luke Altmaier to Denver? Is this because he was Bryant's Q in the Citrus Bowl? I'm not sure, but he was decently impressive at the Senior Bowl. For most of the Senior Bowl, Scott, he was the guy we liked the most, that kind of like stood out the most. But that was just to keep it in perspective. None of those quarterbacks at the Senior Bowl were really popping outside of Diego, but he's just a little guy, so but I have no idea. I haven't talked to Nick about the mock, but he, for a developmental guy, maybe. I don't know where he had the Broncos mocking him, what round, but interesting guy.
Yeah, I don't know why. I can't speak for Nick. I can't speak for his reasoning. I understand that they needed someone that could take over the third string quarterback role for Sam Ehlinger, but string guy, I would suggest asking Nick for his reasoning behind that pick.
Now, Scott, the last thing you just said in the DM, is that after watching over all the video or off the cuff? I'm just curious. Because I don't remember that while we were watching. Cole Payton from North Dakota State, he's saying, I like the most overall of the Senior Bowl quarterbacks. Eric Holt, super chat number 3, brother. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric.
Saying re-signing JK bothers me because of the injury history. At running back, I feel as though RJ should be the number 1 and maybe sign Rico Dowdle, not a Tyler Algier fan. Why aren't you an Algier fan? I'm just curious. But here's the way to look at it, Eric. It's not that you're signing JK to come in and be the guy again, which is what he was. RJ was a compliment to JK Dobbins as the guy. You bring him in as a component to the puzzle, not, so he's in tandem to, I don't care who's the 1, who's the 2, but it's a pretty equal snap share, like an Algier and a Dobbins being your first and second down backs, and you're bringing in RJ on third down and in the red zone. That's a very formidable running back room, and I don't think you'd have to spend all that much. And by the way, the Broncos have decent cap space. They're like just shy of $30 million, and that's before they make any moves, go to any players, do any restructures. Like, they're in pretty good shape cap-wise, Zach, and free 90 free of the Russell Wilson dead money.
Yeah, Eric, I feel like we've talked about this pretty extensively tonight. Everyone has their flavor of ice cream they like. You like Rico Dowdle. I like Tyler Algier or Breece Hall or Kenneth Walker. I'm not really being picky. I agree with you about the J.K. Dobbins injury history, but if they choose to resign him as like a ballast or an insurance policy, I wouldn't hate that as well.
Oh, wait a minute. It's Pearl's birthday? Yo, happy birthday, Pearl. It's your birthday. Shout hooray.
Happy birthday.
Yeah, that's awesome. Eric, brother, thank you, big dog. And look, I understand why it's on your mind. Running back situation, to me, it's the biggest need. Goes running back, wide receiver, tight end, linebacker in that order. So I'm with you in that they need some solutions, big dog. They need some solutions. Mike, I don't care if you read this or not, but I'm trying to follow the logic. Franklin is a number 3 with 700 yards and 6 scores because of the screens, but Waddle is a true number one with 800-ish yards. So let's break this down very simply, Zach. What is it about Jalen Waddle to you that makes him a number one caliber receiver? When we talk about you're trying to find an upgrade over Sutton, a guy that turns Sutton into a excellent number two, not a lower end, maybe mid-tier number one. What is it about Waddle that maybe gives you a true number one?
I mean, well, these types of comparisons are frustrating to me because I feel like they're disingenuous. You can't really compare two different receivers in two different roles on two different teams in two different situations. If you look at Waddle's production, especially after losing Tyreek Hill, it holds up as a number one receiver. Troy Franklin, the majority of his production or lack thereof came on screen passes or passes near the line of scrimmage. He had more drops, I'm assuming, than Jalen Waddle. I can't prove that because I don't have the numbers in front of me. But again, it's just looking at the situations and looking beyond the box score, and it's all preference as well. I'm a fan of Jalen Waddle. You might not be.
Look, I still think, Mike, for what it's worth, I still think it's possible that Franklin could really develop into an upper tier, like an Alec Pierce caliber number two wide receiver. You know, when we say, oh, the Broncos have Cortland Sutton and then a handful of number three type guys, we are painting with very broad strokes. Overall, as a number two in Denver's, you know, relative to the volume of passing that the Broncos had with Bo Nix in his second year, he was pretty dang good. And especially as you point out here in your comment, what he was asked to do with all the screens, right? But he ends up with 6 touchdowns, which, if memory serves, is what Cortland finished with. I think Cortland Sutton in 2025, I'm pretty sure 7 touchdowns. All right. So I was one off. But Franklin, Zach, I think we talked about this last night. He was listed by In-Game as the second best value receiver in the NFL last year because of his production relative to only making, you know, about $1 million.
I just don't get the point and the motive that Mike's trying to push here. You're anti Troy Franklin or pro Troy Franklin, anti Jalen Waddle. You're pro Alec Pierce. It's your opinion. I just think if you look at what he's done on an individual basis, a weekly basis, it's apples and oranges. If the Broncos can upgrade the receiver room with a player of Jalen Waddle's magnitude, you have to do it. If they could do that with Alec Pierce as well, I would encourage them to do it. But I just wouldn't put all my eggs into his basket. Comes down to opinion.
I also think Waddle is a guy, Mike. So some food for thought. Another thing that separates these two receivers. Waddle is a wide receiver that kind of forces defenses to play a little bit differently and to account for him, and, you know, taking attention away from Cortland. Franklin's not quite there yet. Maybe he grows into it. Maybe he becomes that. Maybe he's very much kind of been somewhat limited by what Sean Payton's asked him to do. And to this point, still, Zach, the Broncos screen game, despite its prolific place in the offense, is still pretty ramshackle, if you ask me. So there's room for improvement there, and I wonder how much personnel could play a part in that, or if it's scheme or what. But guys, we're at 52 minutes. We still have a little bit of time. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to go through a couple messages for you, and then we're going to come back and spend a couple more minutes looking at the chat one last time, so don't go anywhere.
It's also a quarterback play, man. Troy Franklin had Bo Nix. Alec Pierce had Daniel Jones for a majority of the year, and Daniel Jones is playing good football. Jalen Waddle had the corpse of Tua Tagovailoa. So again, to me, apples and oranges, but maybe a topic for another day. That was another tremendous installment of the Mile High Huddle podcast. If you're not doing so, please follow us on X at the MHH Pod. You can follow the main account on X at Mile High Huddle, Chad at Chad and Jensen, myself at Kelberman NFL, and Scott, our producer, at Scout Kennedy. If you guys want some merch like we're rocking each and every single podcast, check out MHHmerch.com and get you some. If you haven't done so yet, please drop us a like at Facebook.com/Mile High Huddle Pod. You can find us on Instagram at Mile_High_Huddle. If you haven't done so yet, please join the new MHH Discord server. The link is in the description below. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, make sure you're leaving your football priest a 5-star review for a chance to win some merch each and every single month. But if anything, y'all, please, very important as always that you subscribe, you like, you share this video and every video you see on the MHH channel. It really helps us grow and reach more Broncos fans just like you.
One other thing here, and this is a great point from Mr. Producer. You can look if you're going to compare, Mike, if you're going to compare Waddle and Franklin, you can go, all right, let's compare through a recency lens what each guy did last year. When you do that, then you got to, like Zach just mentioned, take into account like quarterback play, situational, team, offense, this and that. Maybe the better thing to do is compare each player's best NFL season. For Troy Franklin, that was obviously last year, right? That was only his second year, but it was also his best year with the 700 plus yards and the 6 touchdowns. Waddle, meantime, his best year in the NFL, he's a 1,400-yard receiver, 8 touchdowns, averaging 18 yards per catch. There's an explosiveness element to the Waddle versus Franklin thing that you just gotta make sure you're seeing there. All right, let's see. We got Ronk saying Bo Nix would take George Pickens under his wing, like DeMarcus Ware did with Von Miller. Zach, I just don't think it's worth our time to get too caught up in the idea of Pickens because the Cowboys are keeping him around. They're going to tag him. Doesn't mean they couldn't tag and trade, but he's probably going to be there's a very good, better chance than not, Zach, that he's a Cowboy.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not giving up multiple first-round picks for George Pickens. I would sign him as a free agent if they didn't tag him, but I'm not giving up a pick or whatever, multiple picks for him. I would rather, like we talked about earlier, a trade for A.J. Brown, a second-round pick, Garrett Wilson, Jalen Waddle, Chris Olave, Drake London. There's a bunch of receivers the Broncos could trade for this offseason.
What was I seeing about? Okay. Oh, dang it. Right when I find it, it does a jump on me. It came from the Ronk. Dang it. Why did it jump? Gifting does the Ronk 20 MHH YouTube memberships to folks in the chat. Really cool, brother. Thank you so much, big dog. You're awesome. We love you. Contributing, taking ownership. We really appreciate you, brother. And like I've said before, one of these days we're going to get you out to the meet and greet. It's going to happen. By the way, Zach, the Altmaier pick was the 7th round mock. So 7th round, they were running, to the podium type thing. He would be great as a 7th round developmental guy, as a Sean Payton quarterback. I think so. I would like it. I would not hate it. If he's there in the 7th, if he's there in the 6th, even. Very interesting. Yeah, Pearl, hope it's been a great day. Happy birthday to you, my friend. Here's what I was trying to click on. Ronk says, this morning on Broncos for Breakfast, Eric said the Broncos should trade Jonathan Cooper during the draft. And I think it's, when it's a guy that has earned a second contract, Zach, and it's easy to kind of want to come to his defense, so to speak, and just dismiss such notions out of hand. But the truth is, Cooper really faded second half of this last season. Like, the Broncos got to figure out what the heck was going on there. He ended up finishing with some decent statistics, but it was a down year compared to his what I would call his breakout 2024 season. Not on the same level as Nick Bonito, but he finishes with 8 sacks, Zach, and he was at 8 sacks for a long time. Like, his game log 2025, he went. Let me find the sacks here. There we go. So in the last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 games, guys, Jonathan Cooper gave you exactly 1/2 of a sack. And not only that, but he was constantly out of position as a rusher, allowing a lot of pass rusher, allowing a lot of quarterback runs, and he wasn't holding up on the edge as a run defender. So doesn't mean he's not salvageable. Doesn't mean it wasn't just a little down period. But the Broncos, Zach, are very strong at this position. You got Ellis rocking and rolling. So if you could get something for Cooper, you shed that salary as well, and you have a ready-made starter. I mean, who knows? We could also create an opportunity for Vaughn to come back. So I don't hate it. But I'd be surprised if I saw it.
I would have to know what I'm getting back for Cooper. If it's going to be like a 4th round pick, it's not worth it. You're creating another hole on defense that you could fill with either Ellis or Dondre Tillman. We don't know if they're ready. If the coaching staff deems them ready, then I could see them moving off of him. you're also be giving up a lot of locker room leadership, Chad, because you're probably going to let Alex Singleton walk in free agency, trading Cooper as well. He's a beloved figure in the locker room. He's one of the bigger fan favorites despite trailing off last year. So there's pros and cons to both. If I can get a premium pick, though, if I get a second round pick, I'm probably pulling that trigger.
And one thing that makes it even less likely is he's very much a Sean Payton guy. He wasn't drafted by the Sean Payton regime, but Sean Payton has loved him from before he even joined on in Denver. So I don't expect to see it happen, but the Broncos do got to get to the bottom of that because he was not the true complement to Nick Bonito down the stretch that he should have been. All right, guys, mile high salute. A special shout out to all the great Super Chat superstars, supporters, and dear members helping us keep the lights on tonight. Like Shannon Mills, we love you. David Youngkin, much love, brother. Papa Bear, Tucson Phil, David Youngkin, Eric Holt, multiple supers, Brad Murdoch from the top rope, Ronnie Ray on Facebook, and then, of course, the Ronk getting 20 memberships. Thank you, brother. And to all the members, we love you. Appreciate you being with us tonight. And Zach and I are off until Wednesday. So everybody have a great start to your week and can't wait to see you then.
I will see you tomorrow for Kelberman's Corner, noon Mountain, 2 Eastern for our YouTube members only, our VIP audience. Have a great rest of your Monday. I will see you then. Chad and I will see you Wednesday. Take care, and as always, go Broncos.